This is why we don't just trust the science. Hello, good people. It's Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, getter of buckets, and I'm knocking my microphone all over the place. What are we talking about today? The science. Maybe you out there are a, quote, science denier. I got a little something for you today. Everybody always saying,
yeah, you should just trust the science. If you don't trust the science, then you're a bad person.
All of this nonsense. This is the sort of thing we've been hearing for the last couple of years in particular, right? You got some questions about said medication, a certain medication for a certain illness that has ailed us in the last couple of years. You're a science denier. You don't believe the polar ice caps are going to melt and destroy all the polar bears. You're a science denier. You don't believe that the, quote, climate is changing because of man-made. It doesn't matter. Anthony Fauci himself declared himself the science, and he says, if you deny me, you're denying. Almost like he was declaring it like it was blasphemy. You're blaspheming. But today, I have a classic example of why we don't, quote, trust the science. Let me explain something to you. Scientists are people just like everybody else. The idea that scientists are different from bakers or basketball players or chiefs or firemen or teachers, it doesn't matter. Scientists are subject to the same predilections, the same trappings of everyone else. Why? Because they are people. There's no special armor that scientists put on that makes them above the fray and make them above reproach. They would never lie. They would never falsify data. Au contraire. And there are many people who like to use this kind of this fallacy of appealing to authority. You know, anytime they want to support some nonsense idea that's clearly not evidently true or self-evidently true, say, oh, well, many scientists say, you know, everything from transgenderism to whatever. Insert whatever thing or lie someone wants to promote. They say, well, the scientists say, as if that's an argument. But today, we've got a classic example of why we don't do that. This is kind of I'm surprised that more people haven't reported on this because this happened at Stanford University. Stanford University apparently has an $8.9 billion research endowment. That's more than 11 states in the US of A. Stanford's research is not inconsequential. This is not some small mom and pop outfit. And the president of Stanford University has been shown to falsify data. Let's roll the tape.
Something extraordinary happened today, something that has shaken the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and the entire world of science and education. The president of Stanford, a university that consistently ranks in the top 3 in the world, resigned. Mark Tessier-Levine, who has led Stanford for 7 years, sent out a letter announcing his departure at the end of next month. It comes after months of explosive reporting by an 18-year-old student journalist who spent his freshman year digging into accusations that the president of his university supervised falsified research and allowed it to be published. Joining us live now, Stanford sophomore-to-be and investigations editor of the student newspaper, the Stanford Daily, Theo Baker. Theo, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm sure it's a really busy day for you today because Tessier-Levine's resignation really caps a stunning set of events that you put into motion last November when you wrote the first article about potential missteps in the work done by his lab before he came to Stanford. What were those allegations?
Yeah, so it's important to note that, there were whisperings of something regarding alleged or manipulated research that Tessier-Levine had published that were floating around the internet for years. They were hiding in scientific forums. They were hiding on blog posts, but they'd never been reported, even while Stanford, he assumed the post of Stanford's president, where he directs an institution with more than $8.9 billion in yearly funding, higher than 11 US states. So these allegations revolved around the idea that images that were published in his papers had been manipulated and photoshopped to show results that they did not actually represent.
All right. And in that first November article, I think you published that image, which also you guys looked at, had forensic scientists work with you on that. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up. I think this is.
All right. So I don't want to go too deep into the details and bore you, but bottom line is that they found that this guy legitimately did oversee research where the data was falsified. They fudged the data, okay? And first of all, shout out to this kid. This guy's got huge cojones, right? This kid is 18 years old, but taking down Stanford presidents and whatnot. Give that guy a Pulitzer or whatever the side note on the journalism front here. This is the sort of journalism we need. This is the sort of courage we need from our journalists, the sort of integrity, right? Not these homers that we have, these partisan hacks, where something is clear right on the surface. I don't know, something like, like the Hunter Biden laptop thing. And everybody's just like, oh, it's Russian disinformation. It took like 5 seconds to look into it, if that, right? This guy, give that man one more round of applause. But anyway, this 18-year-old kid uncovered this scandal. There had been whisperings. Apparently, nobody had the courage to pursue it but him, and he took down a dishonest guy. Now, let's think about what this means. Stanford University president. This guy's a big deal, right? But this guy's supposed to be the utmost of integrity. And if Anthony Fauci is the science, then this guy, he's got to be pretty close to it. He's got to be like one of how the Bible talks about the 24 elders, right? 24 elders all surrounding the throne of God. Like this guy would have to be one of the 24 science, apostles or whatever, like surrounding Anthony Fauci, I guess, who is the science, right? So anyway, this guy's he's not some low-level guy falsifying data. And this is the reason why we have every right to be skeptical of someone's claims until they demonstrate with beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt that what they're saying is true. Just saying, hey, I'm the science, you should listen to me is demagoguery. It's something that we shouldn't accept, which leads me to my next point. Many of you have probably heard the latest happenings with LeBron James Jr., a.k.a. Bronny, and one Tori Kelly, the great Tori Kelly, great singer. Tori Kelly rushed to the hospital with blood clots. Just on a personal note, a very dear friend of ours, only in her 30s, just died recently. We had her funeral maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Perfectly healthy, seems like. She was healthy. She died of blood clots. LeBron James Jr., heart issues. There's been whisperings of a certain side effect from a certain medication that was pushed upon the American people over the last couple of years. It was highly experimental, but they said it was safe and effective and there was nothing to worry about. And if you were hesitant to take it, then you were a
science denier.
Whatever the heck that means. Now, I want you to understand what I'm not saying. I am not saying that anyone has any information as to what caused these two things. I am saying, however, that there is, I think, enough reasonable suspicion for this line of reasoning to be pursued. What is causing all of these seemingly anomalous, kind of an uptick in healthy young people experiencing these events? And there's a reason why we have no confidence that even if there was some sort of link, that anyone would uncover it. Do you know how many people, how many heads would roll if it was found that they knew this information or they had this information and they didn't report it? You're not going to sit here and tell me that somehow the science is above it. You're not going to tell me that. This gentleman, the president of Stanford University, he didn't act alone. He wasn't sitting there. I'm guarantee you he wasn't sitting in front of his desk with the Photoshop. He had a whole team of people in on it. So what did we say? What did we say about Tori and Bronny? What did we say about them? We can't even have any confidence in our nation that if there is a link, that it would be pursued with the sort of vigor necessary, unless somebody with some courage, like this young man, actually decides to do the work. We've already seen on several occasions that so-called, that many of the statements about this medication that I speak of that were false, right? They said that if you had this medication, you couldn't transmit a certain illness or disease, right? You couldn't get it. And then if you got it, you couldn't transfer it. Well, both of those were false. Then we find out, hey, well, before we even released it, we knew that it didn't stop transmission, but whatever, right? And what's the point that I'm making? The point that I'm making, friends, is that this demagoguery, this so-called appeal to the science, it's always been a scam. And everybody has the right to express their views and to say, I don't trust that unless you show me more evidence. This nonsense of appealing to authority where you are beholden to some bureaucrat or some scientist who you didn't elect to make decisions for your life, that you got to listen to them because they said so, is let's just say it's suspect. And this is why our question asking and everything that we've been doing has been completely justified. What do you think, friends? Do you trust the science? Or do you think we should have every right to make our own decisions and to use our own judgment to make decisions about our lives? If you disagree with me, friends, let me know in the comments. If you do agree, let me know how it helped you. Until next time, God bless you.